All the prestigious halls of Cornerstone Academy on Victoria Island, Lagos, 23 children sat learning mathematics on a Tuesday morning. 22 of them faced the whiteboard, their pencils moving in careful unison across pristine worksheets. One did not. One child sat apart, his attention fixed elsewhere entirely. Adaeze, 8 years old, occupied the desk by the window, the same desk he'd claimed every single day for 3 years. His classmates had learned to ignore him completely. His teachers had learned to work around him quietly. His parents had learned to make endless excuses for their silent son. But Chidi wasn't ignoring the lesson. He was doing something far more important, something only he understood. He was drawing. Chidi did not speak. He had never spoken a single word in his 8 years of life. Doctors had a name for it, nonverbal autism. His mother called it a trial from God, a burden to bear with faith. His father called it an embarrassment, something to be hidden from business associates. But Chidi communicated in the only language that mattered to him: color and line, shape and shadow. Art was his voice. His small hands moved with a precision that belied his age, selecting each pencil with deliberate, almost ritualistic care. Blue for the eyes, always the same shade of blue. Black for the bars, red for the lips, grey for the tears. The same colors, the same order every single day without exception. The image was always the same. A woman's face, rendered in a child's uncertain strokes but with unmistakable, haunting intent. Her eyes were wide and pleading, filled with a sorrow beyond words. Her cheeks were wet with tears that Chidi drew as perfect droplets. One by one, each tear a silent scream, and between the viewer and her face, a series of vertical lines. Bars, the kind that keep people in, or keep people out. His art teacher had reported the drawings to his parents months ago. Disturbing fixation, she'd written in her notes. Possibly reflecting violent media exposure. Recommend psychiatric evaluation. His parents had nodded solemnly, apologized profusely, and never mentioned it again. No one had thought to ask why Chidi always chose that particular desk. No one had noticed that his dark eyes, when not fixed on his paper, always drifted slowly to the window, to the view beyond. Through that window, past the school's carefully manicured hedge, stood the compound of Mr. Emmanuel Okonkwo, headmaster of Cornerstone Academy, pillar of the community, respected elder at Christ the King Anglican Church. His house was beautiful, gleaming white in the Lagos sun. His gardens were immaculate, tended by unseen hands. His servant quarters sat quietly behind the main building, almost invisible. And his wife had moved to America 2 years ago. At least that's what everyone had been told. 312 drawings. That's how many Chidi had produced in the past 11 months. 312 identical cries for help, each one meticulously dated in the corner by teachers required to document all student work, each one showing the same face, the same bars, the same tears. They sat in a filing cabinet in the school's administrative office, evidence of nothing and everything. A silent accusation that no one could read. Repeated behavior. Obsessive patterns. The child lost in his own world, that's what the official file said. But files don't see, files don't listen, files don't wonder why. Adaeze had returned to Nigeria with something to prove, something burning inside her that had never quite gone out. After 7 years studying and teaching art in London, she'd finally come home to make a difference in her own country. Cornerstone Academy had offered her a position teaching art to primary school students. A far cry from the university position she'd hoped for, but it was a start. Every journey begins somewhere. She walked through the gates on her first morning with her mother's voice echoing in her head. Notice what others ignore. See what they choose not to see. Her mother had been a journalist, killed covering the Delta crisis when Adaeze was only 12 years old. She'd inherited her mother's observant eyes that saw what others deliberately chose not to see. The warning came before she'd even finished unpacking her art supplies in her new classroom. Mrs. Adebayo, the senior teacher with 20 years at the school, cornered her by the tea station. You'll have a special case in your primary 3 class. The Ease boy, autistic, non-speaking. She said the words like they explained everything, like they excused everything. Don't indulge his episodes. He draws the same disturbing picture constantly. Some woman crying behind bars. Very strange. Just let him do it quietly and focus on the other normal children. Adaeze nodded politely at Mrs. Adebayo's advice. But something deep inside her refused to file away any child under special case. Every child was special in their own way. Every child deserved to be truly seen. Her first art class, Adaeze did what no teacher had ever done before. She walked directly to Chidi's isolated desk and knelt beside him, not hovering over him with pity, not correcting him with impatience, just present, sharing his space. That's beautiful, she said quietly, studying his drawing with genuine interest. He didn't respond. She hadn't expected him to, but his hand paused. She studied the image carefully. The woman's face rendered with unexpected detail. The bars so precisely spaced, the tears so deliberately placed. Who is she? Adaeze asked gently. Chidi's pencil resumed its familiar path. Blue for the eyes, black for the bars, red for the lips, grey for the tears. Always the same. But now finally someone was truly watching. Over the next 2 weeks, Adaeze began collecting with methodical purpose. Every drawing Chidi completed, she carefully kept. She photographed each one. She dated them precisely. She studied the details that never changed, never varied, never deviated from their haunting pattern. The exact shade of the woman's skin, the particular set of her eyes, their shape, their expression, the way the bars were spaced with mathematical precision. This was not random. This was not a disturbing fixation. This was a record, a testimony, a silent boy's desperate, repeated attempt to tell someone something important. But what was he trying to say? And who would listen to a child who couldn't speak? The school archive was a forgotten room in the administrative building, thick with dust and decades of accumulated history. Photographs, yearbooks, records. Adaeze worked through her lunch breaks, flipping through years of ceremonies and celebrations. I was looking for one specific face, one woman who might somehow match a child's drawing. She found her in a 2022 Parents' Day album. Mrs. Funke Okonkwo, presenting the prize for academic excellence with a radiant smile. She was beautiful, poised and professional in traditional Aso-Oke fabric, the picture of success. Her smile was bright, her hand resting casually on her husband's arm. Beside the photo, a caption: Headmaster Emmanuel Okonkwo and wife Funke. Adaeze held the photograph up to the light. The shape of the eyes, the curve of the lips, that particular set of the face. Her heart began to pound. Side by side, the truth became undeniable. The woman in Chidi's drawings was not some figment of a troubled imagination. She was Funke Okonkwo, the headmaster's wife who had supposedly moved to America 2 years ago, but whose face a silent boy had been drawing obsessively for nearly a year. Why? Adaeze began asking questions, carefully at first, casually, as if merely curious. I saw a photo of Mrs. Okonkwo in the archive. Does she ever visit the school these days? The answers varied wildly, but the discomfort was universal. She moved abroad. America, I think. They separated quietly. Very sad situation. She had mental health issues, Needed treatment overseas. Best not to mention her around the headmaster. It's still painful for him. Every answer was different. Every person looked away when they spoke. In Adaeze's experience, when everyone has a different story, no one has the actual truth. Or everyone is protecting the same lie. That night, Adaeze searched every public record she could access from her small apartment. Funke Okonkwo had been a corporate lawyer, successful, respected, connected to powerful people. Her LinkedIn profile hadn't been updated in over 2 years. Her last known address was still listed as the Okonkwo compound on Victoria Island. There was no record of any divorce. No immigration record she could find through public databases. No social media activity whatsoever. It was as if Funke Okonkwo had simply vanished from the face of the earth. And the only person who seemed to know where she was an 8-year-old boy who could only communicate through art. Full summons came on a Friday afternoon, just before closing time. The headmaster would like to see you in his office. The secretary's voice was carefully, deliberately neutral. Adaeze had been expecting this moment. She'd asked too many questions to too many people. Someone had talked. Word had reached him. The walk to Emmanuel Okonkwo's office felt longer than it should have. Each step echoed off marble floors. Adaeze, our newest talent! Emmanuel Okonkwo rose to greet her, hand extended, smile broad and professionally practiced. His impressive office was a carefully curated shrine to respectability and community standing. Framed degrees lined the walls. Community service awards filled display cases. Photographs with politicians, bishops, and traditional rulers adorned every surface. The children absolutely love your art classes. You've made quite an impression. He gestured graciously for her to sit. Tea, water. Adaeze politely declined. She'd learned enough about predators to recognize charm as their first weapon. I understand you've been asking questions about my wife. His smile remained fixed, but his eyes changed completely. Something cold moving behind them like a shark in dark water. Funke's situation is private, a family matter. You're still in your probationary period, yes? It would be a shame if unfounded curiosity affected your promising future here. That Sunday, Adaeze manufactured a reason to visit the compound. Ye gift basket for the headmaster. Thank you for his guidance during her first month, she'd explained at the gate. The security guard called up to the main house, spoke in hushed tones, and after several long minutes, she was admitted. The compound was as impressive as she'd expected. Manicured lawns maintained by invisible gardeners. Expensive European cars gleaming in the driveway. A house that spoke of old money and new power combined. She made pleasant small talk with the housekeeper while her eyes casually, carefully scanned every corner of the property. The servant quarters sat behind the main house, partially obscured by flowering bushes, almost invisible unless you were looking. A single window faced the school across the street, faced Chidi's classroom window. She heard it as she was leaving. A sound from behind the main house, muffled but unmistakable to anyone truly listening. A cry, not an animal, no mistaking it. Human. Brief, quickly silenced as if someone had clamped a rough hand over a desperate mouth. Adaeze's blood went ice cold. She forced herself to keep walking naturally, to smile warmly at the housekeeper, to wave casually at the gate guard as she left. But her hands were shaking uncontrollably. A child had been drawing this scene for nearly a year. 312 times he'd tried to tell the world. And behind the headmaster's beautiful walls, hidden from all the respectable people of Victoria Island, someone was crying desperately for help. Monday morning, Adaeze arrived at school before anyone else. She'd spent all of Sunday night, carefully drawing a simple map of the Okonkwo compound from memory. When the other children left for morning recess, she sat beside Chidi at his window desk. "I need to show you something important," she said softly. She placed the hand-drawn map before him. For a long moment, the boy didn't react. Then his small hand moved, not toward his pencils as usual, but toward the paper. His finger traced the layout of the compound, past the main house, stopping at the structure behind it, the servant quarters. His finger pressed down firmly on that spot and held. "Show me," Adaeze whispered urgently. Chidi stood from his desk and walked purposefully to the window. His window. The desk he'd claimed for 3 years running. He pointed. From this exact spot, at this exact desk, he had seen her watching, the woman behind bars. And he had tried to tell everyone. "I see her," Adaeze said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. The words were simple, but they meant absolutely everything. "You've been trying to tell us all this time." For nearly a year, he'd been screaming in the only language he possessed, and the world had callously filed his screams under behavioral issues. Now, finally, someone was truly listening. Someone believed what his drawings had been desperately saying all along. Adaeze made the call from inside her parked car, hands trembling. She debated for hours. The headmaster was powerful, connected to important people, protected by layers of reputation and money. But she had to act. "Police emergency hotline, how can I help you?" She took a deep breath. "I have information about a possible kidnapping. A woman may have been held against her will for over 2 years. Her mother's voice echoed across the years. "Notice what others ignore, my daughter, then do something about it." The next 48 hours were the longest of Adaeze's entire life. She kept teaching, kept smiling, kept watching Chidi draw the same haunting image. "Don't do anything to alert him," the detective had warned. So she sat in staff meetings with the man who might be holding his own wife, captive behind his elegant walls. They came at dawn on a Thursday, when the streets were still empty. 6 police vehicles in total. A warrant signed by a judge who had refused to be bought, despite the offers that had surely been made. Adaeze watched from a safe distance as those imposing gates finally swung open under irresistible force. Emmanuel Okonkwo emerged from his front door in a silk bathrobe. His face a perfect mask of righteous outrage, and then, briefly, unmistakable terror flickering beneath. "This is an outrage. Do you know who I am in this community?" He knew exactly who he was, but now, so did the officers approaching him with handcuffs. For his servant quarters had been extensively modified. What looked like a simple storage room from outside had been converted into a prison cell. Reinforced steel door, soundproofed walls lined with foam, bars welded onto the single window, the window that an 8-year-old boy had been watching for 2 long years. The officers broke through. "Hand it." Shielding her eyes from the first true light she'd seen in over 2 years, sat Funke Okonkwo, alive, broken in body, but not in spirit, but alive. She discovered her husband's massive financial crimes. She threatened to expose everything, so he'd made her disappear. Not to America, but to a room 8 meters from his bedroom. 1 week later, Chidi Eze drew a new picture at his window desk. The same woman's face, Funke Okonkwo's face, but this time without bars, without tears. She was smiling, walking in bright sunlight, free. The mute boy had solved a crime that no one else had noticed, by simply drawing what he saw through his window.